Yasmin Qureshi. She's a barrister, relatively new MP. She's the MP for Bolton South and Walkden. Here's a very brief clip of her response to this petition and the debate.
This petition has grown, some of it to do with a lot of misinformation, some of it to do with foreign interference, and I do think, yes, well, you may laugh at it, but that happens to be correct as well.
No, it's not. No, it's not. What she's doing, she's trying to come up with an excuse for the popularity of this petition. This petition got 3 million signatures in record time because of the huge level of discontent with this government, the huge level of discontent with Keir Starmer as a Prime Minister. And Ms Qureshi is trying to say, oh, no, well, what is foreign interference? You know, that's why. So you're not getting... This is misinformation. What a load of rubbish. Absolute load of rubbish. Let's talk about this with contributor, columnist for the Daily Express and the Telegraph, Robert Taylor. Welcome, Robert.
Hello, Kevin.
I mean, it was classic, wasn't it? Yeah, I think these Labour politicians, the way I see this story, it's a story about the insular nature of the people who live in that artificial world called the Westminster bubble. So in her world, she cannot perceive, this is my speculation, of course, but I think I'm right, she cannot perceive that her government, her party, Keir Starmer, are genuinely, massively unpopular among the people of this country, which is why this petition got 3 million signatures in about 20 minutes. But her reason is foreign interference. Absolute nonsense. But I think she genuinely believes that. She cannot see just how phenomenally unpopular this Labour government has become in record time.
Yeah, well, she certainly came up with no evidence of any foreign interference. And when politicians assert
I'm with you. I think there's a lot of delusion going on in the Labour Party right now. You know, they seem to be trying to pass off these extremely difficult months, these extremely difficult times that they've been through, as, you know, classic teething problems. We're having to make the tough decisions first. You know, we're going through this rough period, but we'll be all right. Well, it's much, much worse than this. Most people believe that we are lumbered with potentially, after only 6 months, arguably the worst Prime Minister that this country has ever endured in modern times. And that is against stiff opposition. They don't seem to understand, many of these Westminster bubble Labour people don't seem to understand that what is going on right now in terms of the government is extraordinary. It is not to be expected. It's extraordinary. And it's pretty catastrophic for them, but they don't really get it.
Yeah, they're so used to being the good guys in opposition, where they can just throw bricks at the Tories, and quite a few of those bricks landed, of course. They're so used to the easy soundbite of opposition that when it gets to coming into government and finding, oh my goodness, it's not actually that easy. It's not to get growth in the economy. It's not easy to stop the boats. It's not easy to have the kind of society and integration and lack of crime that we would all like. And suddenly they're faced with criticism and they're finding it impossible to deal with.
And what did you make of it? You know, I mean, this is the policies have been the problem. You know, the disastrous policies, you know, axing the winter fuel allowance, cutting inheritance tax for farmers, alienating rural communities. So many policies have gone down like a cup of cold sick with the entire population, which is, you know, the main reason this government's in trouble. But also we have a Prime Minister who just seems to stumble from one self-made catastrophe to the next. Now, I thought he was way off beam in the summer when he decided that everyone who was protesting, everyone who was upset about the migrant crisis was somehow a far-right thug. And much worse than that is what he said yesterday when he said that anybody who feels, who believes there should be a new public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal is climbing on board the far-right wagon, the bandwagon, and that somehow, in other words, if you and I believe there should be a fresh inquiry into this scandal, we're far-right, we're extremists, we're Adolf Hitler. I mean, that was a really, really bad misstep by him to say that. People are furious.
Yeah, that was an almighty clangor. And it was a strange one for him to make, because otherwise he actually had people on his side in what he was saying about Musk and, you know, interfering in British politics. In my opinion, Kevin, I don't know your view on this. In my opinion, British people don't particularly like foreign interference. We didn't like it when Obama said we'd be at the back of the queue if we voted for Brexit. We didn't like it when Francois Hollande of France, the president before Brexit, said, I don't want to scare you, but there will be consequences if you vote for Brexit. We don't like it when Guy, and I hope I've got his pronunciation right, Guy Verhofstadt, the former Prime Minister of Belgium, weighs into the Brexit debate and continually tells us that we've made a horrible mistake. So Starmer had us on his side, or a lot of us on his side yesterday, but then he drops this immense clangor by saying anyone who thinks that the child abuse scandal is far right. It was such a stupid own goal from the Prime Minister.
And people are furious. But it did at least give us a window into Keir Starmer's definition of what far right means, because we're always saying, you keep criticising the far right, all you Labour lot, the far right thugs. What do you mean by far right? Could you define that? And they always go strangely silent at that point. They can't quite define it. And now we know what Keir Starmer's definition of far right is. It's anyone who disagrees with him or anyone who does something that he doesn't like. They're far right. It's as simple as that. The guy, I mean, we're talking now about his mental apparatus, which I do not think are in good order.
Yeah, it's a very lazy deduction to make, isn't it, from the Prime Minister? And it was very lazy, by the way, and just hypocritical of the MP Yasmin Qureshi to say in the House of Parliament today, over the last 14 years, we, Labour, didn't commandeer a public petition to demand a new election. Well, of course they did. What was the people's vote all about? The people's vote, which, by the way, Qureshi was in favour of and voted for, was all about overturning the democratic decision of the British people. So what she said in Parliament today was the height of hypocrisy, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, she's a barrister. Keir Starmer's a barrister. Do you know what would make Parliament, would make the House of Commons much better? Would be as if we banned lawyers from becoming MPs. That place is infested with windbag legal briefs, and it is a problem. It is a problem. It really is. But going back to Keir Starmer, he's not going to be forgiven for this, is he? I mean, people are seething mad. And, you know, what it struck me as, even on a cynical basis, Robert, he's such an inept politician. He didn't think that through. You know, how can you possibly say that someone who is concerned about the fate of those poor little girls, the thousands of poor little girls who were raped and sexually abused, someone who feels that they deserve justice with some kind of inquiry, how can you say that they are far right? It's disgraceful, and he didn't think it through, did he?
Well, it makes one think, perhaps unfairly, but it makes one think, what is he trying to hide? Why is it that this Labour government is so afraid, it would seem, of a full national inquiry? We can still implement the J review on child sex abuse that reported in 2022. We can do the two together. It's not either or. So it does make you think, when Starmer comes out with this sort of throwaway line about the far right, what's he trying to deflect from? What's he trying to hide? If he hasn't got anything to hide, well, fine, let's then have the national inquiry and get it all out in the open.
Yes, indeed. And, I mean, in terms... How does he get out of this? I mean, how can he emerge from this with any dignity or any popularity at all? I think he's really cooked his goose this time.
Well, you know, I was talking to someone just this evening about this, and I was saying I'm not sure that there is a way back to popularity for Starmer. He's made, and the Labour government as well, they've made so many catastrophic errors. All that goodwill on a third of the vote that they came in with in July has gone. The only people who still believe them are the absolute hardcore Labour that will always vote Labour. Yeah. Is there actually a way back? The only way back, Kevin, and I've said this to you before, I think, is if the right, in Reform and the Tories, if the right continues to split down the middle, then there's another route for Starmer to get in on around a third of the vote next time. But I can't see already how he's going to do better than a third of the vote.
I agree with you. And one last problem, I think, for Labour, another miscalculation on their part, is this. They're now positioning, today, very busily positioning Jess Phillips as a victim of vicious trolling on social media, death threats, horrible names and everything like that. Now, of course, we don't condone that. That's a horrific thing it's a nasty thing to happen to anybody. I know this, it happens to me virtually every single day. But Jess Phillips, she's the victim. Now, as I say, we don't condone that, but frankly, this is inappropriate. We're not thinking about this big old politician, the Home Office minister, as a victim. We're thinking about the victims of the grooming gangs. And we're thinking this is the Home Office minister who's blocked an inquiry into that scandal. So again, they've miscalculated. They got this wrong. People are angry about Jess Phillips, even though the Labour Party seems to think she should be beatified right away, as Wes Streeting said. She's a great woman, great woman. Have I missed something here?
Yeah, it's very tone deaf, and any time that you read about this child abuse scandal, it just gets worse and worse. I was reminding myself of it tonight before coming onto your show, just how appalling those crimes were. These are kids suffering the most appalling abuse. That's really what we should be worried about. Politics is a rough old game, and so is presenting radio programmes, Kevin. You do get abuse, you throw abuse, get it. We all know that's the game. It's not about you, Jess Phillips. It's about these girls who were appallingly abused.
Yeah, they've got themselves into a real pickle this time, Labour. And as you say, Robert, it's hard to see how Keir Starmer will ever negotiate his way or navigate his way out of this. Just the last point, I had Rod Riddle on who's earlier in the show, who's pretty well connected, and he's hearing and he believes, that Starmer might not last very long. There's more and more talk that Labour have had enough of him as well, and that their best route forward might be to defenestrate this profoundly unpopular Prime Minister.
Yeah, and I think Wes Streeting, I don't like everything Wes Streeting says by any means, but I think he's a really good communicator, a leader in waiting, and I think he'll be a much better bet for the next election than Keir Starmer. The Tories and Reform will be hoping that a wounded Keir Starmer, he is already wounded, will struggle on until the next election, because he'll be far more beatable than a fresh-faced Wes Streeting.
Couldn't agree with you more. Of course, Wes Streeting, I agree. I think he's on a hiding to nothing. I don't think he will reform the NHS. That's not his fault. No one ever manages to reform the NHS. But he does speak human. You get the feeling, he understands people, whereas Keir Starmer does not speak human, and we don't even know what planet he's from. So that's the big worry. Robert, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Robert Taylor there, columnist for the Daily Express and The Telegraph. Let me know what you think. This Prime Minister, just how much of a disaster is he? Just how much would you like him to go? Maybe you'd like him to stay. Let me know.